The rumble of motorcycles echoed through the small town of Willow Creek, a once quiet community now overshadowed by the presence of a notorious biker gang known as the Iron Wolves. The townspeople lived in fear, their businesses forced to pay protection fees to keep the gang from wreaking havoc. But not everyone was willing to bow down. John Carter, a retired Marine, had moved to Willow Creek seeking peace after 20 years of service. He opened a modest auto repair shop on Main Street, hoping to live a quiet life. But when the Iron Wolves showed up demanding payment, John realized his war wasn't over yet. The bikers thought they could intimidate him. They had no idea they were about to go up against a man who had faced far worse. John stood in his garage, wiping grease from his hands as he inspected the engine of a classic Mustang. The familiar hum of motorcycles approached, and he glanced up to see a group of leather-clad bikers pulling into the lot. Their leader, a burly man with a jagged scar across his cheek, dismounted and strode toward John. His leather vest bore the Iron Wolves emblem, a snarling wolf's head. "You John Carter?" the man asked, his voice rough. John nodded. "That's right. Can I help you?" The biker grinned. "Name's Rocco. We're here to talk business." "Business?" John raised an eyebrow. "I run an auto repair shop. Not much more to it than that." Rocco chuckled. "See, that's where you're wrong. Around here, you gotta pay for protection. 50% of your profits, and we make sure nothing bad happens to your shop." John's expression darkened. "I don't need protection." Rocco's smile faded. "That's not how this works, old man. You either pay up, or things get messy." John stared at him, his jaw clenched. "You picked the wrong guy to mess with." Rocco stepped closer, his face inches from John's. "We'll be back in a week. Have the money ready." As the bikers roared away, John knew this was just the beginning. That evening, John sat at his kitchen table, a cup of black coffee in front of him. Memories of his time in the Marines flooded his mind. The missions, the camaraderie, and the battles fought. He had left that life behind, but his training never left him. The next morning, John began preparing. He reinforced the shop's doors and windows, installed security cameras, and set up a hidden alarm system. He contacted a few trusted friends from his military days, sharing the situation. "You need backup, John?" his old comrade Marcus asked over the phone. "Not yet," John replied, "but I'll let you know if things escalate." John spent the following days gathering intel on the Iron Wolves. He learned that Rocco operated out of a bar called the Wolf's Den, where the gang plotted their schemes. He noted their routines, watching from a distance. He wasn't going to wait for them to make the next move. He was going to take the fight to them. Under the cover of darkness, John approached the Wolf's Den. The bar was bustling with activity, loud rock music spilling into the street. John slipped around the back, his footsteps silent. He disabled the security cameras and picked the lock on the rear door. Inside, he moved with precision, planting small devices throughout the bar, smoke bombs and flashbangs he had crafted himself. As he finished, he heard voices approaching. "Did you hear about that old guy at the auto shop?" one biker said. "Rocco says he's going to teach him a lesson." John smirked. "We'll see about that." He slipped out just as the bikers entered the bar. Moments later, the devices detonated, filling the place with smoke and blinding light. Chaos erupted as the gang stumbled around, coughing and shouting. John watched from a safe distance, satisfied. It wasn't a decisive victory, but it sent a clear message. He wasn't going to roll over. The Iron Wolves were furious. The next day, they stormed into John's shop, smashing tools and overturning tables. John remained calm, standing in the center of the wreckage. "This your idea of a fair fight?" he asked, his voice steady. Rocco sneered. "You think you're clever? You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who you are," John replied, "and I know you're not invincible." Rocco lunged at him, but John sidestepped with ease. Grabbing Rocco's arm, he twisted it behind his back, forcing the gang leader to his knees. "You've been bullying this town for too long," John growled. "It ends now." Rocco winced. "You can't take us all on." John released him, stepping back. "We'll see." John knew he couldn't fight the Iron Wolves alone. He reached out to the townspeople, sharing his plan to stand up to the gang. "We're stronger together," he told them. "They've divided us with fear, but if we stand united, we can take back our town." At first, there was hesitation, but as more people joined John's cause, the tide began to turn. They organized neighborhood watches, secured their businesses, and shared information about the gang's movements. Together, they formed a resistance. The Iron Wolves noticed the change. Their intimidation tactics weren't working anymore, and they knew who was behind it. Rocco and his gang made one last attempt to assert their dominance. They planned to raid the town square during a community event, hoping to make an example of John. But John was ready. As the bikers roared into the square, they were met with a united front. The townspeople stood shoulder to shoulder, armed with makeshift weapons and unwavering resolve. John stepped forward, facing Rocco. "It's over," he said. Rocco scowled. "You think you've won?" "I know we have," John replied. "This town doesn't belong to you. It never did." The bikers hesitated. Without the fear they had relied on, they were powerless. One by one, they dropped their weapons and backed away. Rocco glared at John. "This isn't the end." John nodded. "You're right, it's the beginning of a town free from your grip." In the weeks that followed, Willow Creek began to heal. The Iron Wolves disbanded, their influence shattered. Businesses reopened, children played in the streets, and the community thrived once more. John Carter returned to his auto shop, content to live a quiet life again, but he knew he would always be ready to stand up for what was right. As he fixed a car in his garage one afternoon, a young boy approached him. "Mr. Carter," the boy said, "you're a hero." John smiled. "No, kid, I'm just a man who loves his town.